The number 4 came from me. A while ago when I got up here and spoke, if you look in your article of zoning of what is allowed in the RP, it plainly states that, you can have, it says, and I'll read, I quote, turkey shoots and other temporary or seasonal events. It talks into 14 days is how many times you can have them. No more than 5 consecutive days in a row. You can't, and you can have 4 a year. So I could have 4 turkey shoots with, this week with 5 in it, next week with 5 in it, and the week after with 4. So, but that's what it, and it says no more than 4 a year. But if you read it, it says that you can have temporary and seasonal events. And I don't know if you don't think a wedding is a temporary or a seasonal event, but I've been married twice, at least. Seems to be pretty
probably too much information for you. I'm good there, wasn't it? Okay, all right. That's really, I was trying to clarify, with the 4, 14, because if you could do 4 weddings based on the Planning Commission recommendation and 14 turkey shoots, you're up to 18. You're almost doing the same thing without anything from the board.
Without any law enforcement, without anything.
But if that's not the case, though, the case is really we never gave you the 4, and
correct.
Probably Mr. Fincham could say with enough prodding from any one individual or two, say, at your 3rd one, he thinks you're making it an event park.
But that's not what it says here.
Yeah, but that's what he just said.
And he's probably smarter than I am, so I'll let that go.
Me too. Me too. Okay. I think I understand what I need to make sure I'm okay. 2 questions from Mr. Fincham. Go right ahead.
Mr. Fincham.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any other approved facility like this in the county on 10 acres?
I'm not sure of the exact acreage. There was a special use permit granted by the board for this type of facility off of Route 632 near Cedon some years back. That facility never actually was utilized and went forward, and off the top of my head, I don't have the exact acreage of that piece of property. And I'm not aware, it's possible, but I'm not aware of any other special event facilities outside of, in the rural areas like this that have been granted other than that one. They may exist, I just don't recall.
And 10 acres seems to be a fairly average size for rural preservation in the county?
10 acres would be the minimum parcel size for a lot that could be created under the RP zoning district. So I'm not sure you could characterize that as the average size, but that is the minimum size allowed outside of a family subdivision for a lot created under the current RP district regulations.
I guess my point is there's a lot of 10-acre lots, rural preservation, that could then be in line for the same kind of permit, which we could then start looking at others in the same venue.
In theory, yes, any other 10-acre lot, somebody could come in and apply for a special exception permit for this type of use.
Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me. Any other questions at this time? Board want to deliberate further? Discuss? Motion? Questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have to tend to agree with Mr. Thompson. And I think that we're talking about weddings, so what else are we going to regulate? Are we going to regulate family reunions? Are we going to regulate barbecues next? I don't see this as a problem in that area. I live in that area. And if Mr. Thompson wanted to use if he owned the property next door to my mom and dad's farm, I wouldn't have a problem with it. And probably the roads aren't as wide as the area up there on Macedonia Road where he's talking about. So with that, I think we ought to, I'll make a motion that we accept special exception 032011 with one exception to that, as it's been presented, with one exception where it's looked at after 1 year.
1 year renewal?
Yes.
1 year renewal, yes.
Mr. Fincham, that is condition 17. So Mr. Popowitz makes a motion for the approval of special exception 03-211, adding 1 year renewal in condition 17. Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I will second it to get it on the floor.
Motion's been made by Mr. Popowitz and properly seconded by Mr. Akers. Further discussion on the motion?
Call the question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Popowitz has called the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Chair to Text Division of the House, Mr. Underwood, how do you vet?
Mr. Chairman, if I can just add a comment. I listened to Ms. Lambert, and Ms. Lambert is in my district, and I've talked to her several times about the state fair. And I've talked to her about her windows rattling and her animals being upset. I think in rural preservation, I think about the quality of life. And I listened to Mr. Hayden, 76 years old, and I'm not sure that all the things that were brought up tonight regarding bicyclists on the road, I think drivers have a right to the road as well as the bicyclists. I think the real issue, I think Mr. Thompson has certain rights that by a property owner. But I am concerned about the quality of life, and Ms. Lambert and I have talked about it several times. And for that reason, I'm going to vote nay.
Mr. Popowitz, how do you vote?
Vote aye.
Mr. Seeley, how do you vote?
Mr. Chairman, in lieu of no other discussion, because I detect that this will be another issue that we'll conquer again, and without further planning through the Planning Commission and some conditions that could be set on other landowners that would want to do the same thing, at this time I'd have to vote no.
Mr. Akers, how do you vote?
Mr. Chairman, again, I vote no, since we weren't able to discuss it and certainly tried to work out some of the issues. First of all, I want to say that we've heard comments about comp plan. As been said many times, people like to use the comp plan to their advantage. The comp plan certainly was not written in stone saying it never could be changed. That's the reason you have special exceptions. You're not going against the comp plan. That is part of the comp plan. So to say that you're not living with your comp plan is certainly not true. It was mentioned about the Madison Rueton building. I happen to live within sight of the Madison Rueton building. Yes, I lived there when the shooting took place a couple of years ago. Yes, the events that they have there all the time. And I can assure you, the ones of you that are here tonight that are talking about all the bad things that are going to happen, you're being scared for nothing. The Madison Rueton Club right behind my house, within sight of my house. When the leaves are off, I can see the Madison Rueton building. And I can tell you, I've never gone to bed at night scared about anything. I've never gone to bed at night concerned and haven't heard a great deal of noise. Yes, you do hear music, but I can hear the trucks go up and down the road as well. I can hear the airplanes going on, in the sky. So it is no more noise than what you're normally used to. The other issue about the places that were mentioned tonight about things taking place that certainly we would not like to happen in Caroline County, the shootings, the stabbings, and the other things. But if we made every decision based on what happens at another venue such as this, then we probably wouldn't agree to build any more roads in the county because people get killed on roads every day. And we probably wouldn't agree to do other things in the county because in the real world, it's just not a perfect world. I went to Mr. Thompson's property. I don't know whether his wife was at home or his family was at home, but my wife and I, we rode around the driveway, the circle driveway there, and rode back to, because I wasn't exactly sure where he was wanting to put it, rode back to his little shed back there. It's a beautiful place, and I personally don't think you're going to see you would have seen any problems with it. I really don't think you would have seen any problems with it. It would have been a nice place. But again, we didn't have an opportunity to talk it out and to try to explain what we wanted to get accomplished, and so I've got to vote no.
All right, I think we've had enough explanations. I too vote no. So the motion to approve special exception 03 fails by a vote of 4-1. So it's not approved. And it's 9:30. Board members need a 15-minute break? Okay. Take a break for 15 minutes. We're going to do you next. If you can have the handout you gave me or you showed me, because I'm going to ask you those numbers. All righty, we will reconvene the board meeting. In an effort to let the Commissioner of Revenue staff go home a little earlier, we're going to do agenda item number 8 before we do agenda item number 7. Of course, they can feel free to stay along for number 7 if they wish. Agenda item number 8 is actually a first reading of an ordinance amending Article 12, license tax of Chapter 103, taxation of the Code of Caroline County to exempt from Caroline license tax businesses with an annual gross receipts of $100,000 or less. Board members will remember that during the budget process, I'd asked if we could move this up from $50,000 to $100,000 to possibly help some smaller business get started before they started paying the B-poll tax. And today, and I think the net revenue loss was in the $11,000, $12,000, $15,000 range, somewhere in that area. Excuse me? $11,500. Mr. Parton had the exact number. Today, I asked Mrs. Carter if we could be a little more aggressive with that and possibly move it up to $150,000 or $200,000. So that the higher the number is before you start paying the B-poll tax, the more small business won't have to pay that tax and they'll have a chance to get started. Mrs. Carter, if you would help me out, because I think Mr. Fincham, you're going to read this or Mrs. Carter's going to read it? Ms. Carter. Ms. Carter, if you would come forward before we do this. I'm going to read it? Oh, Mr. Parton's going to read it. Okay, but if you will come forward just for a second and share with the rest of the board the numbers that you shared with me right before the board meeting started. So if we, based on our budget now, if we go to this $100,000, we would lose $11,500 in revenue.
Yes, sir.
If we go to $150,000, we would lose
17.
another $17,000. If we go to $200,000,
Then you're going to lose an additional 30,000.
so we would go from $100,000 to $200,000. We would lose $47,000 in revenue.
Yes, sir, approximately.
Okay, approximately. And then I guess for me, I'm trying to weigh whether that $47,000 in lost revenue means that there would possibly be more businesses who would start and then contribute that $40,000 to the county in other ways.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
possible right now, as tough as times are, it would be a small incentive.
And I understand that. Mm-hmm. But when I'm surrounded by darkness, the tiniest little ray of light looks good. So I want to give a tiny little ray of light if we can. And
That's the way it goes. It goes from 11.5, and we'd add a 17, and then we'd add 30.
so
That's
the
the
board had
different
basically
levels.
during the budget process agreed to go from 50 to 100, which is 11.5. We've already agreed to that. We're basically looking at the ordinance now, because this is the first time it would really take effect. That's why we didn't do anything
Right.
during the board budget session. So if we go to 150, it's another 17,000. And if we go to 200, it's another 30,000.
Yes.
$58,500 total is what we would lose, going from 50,000 to 200,000, we're looking at
Yes, sir.
$58,000.
Yes, sir. Now, this, of course, would not release them from the obligation
Right,
of the license itself.
right. Still have to get the license.
Yes, sir.
But if you're, like the lady that was the event planner, a total startup, you would have to get 200,000 in revenue before you start paying the BPO tax.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Before we do the actual reading of the ordinance for the first reading, how does the board feel about any of those numbers? Stay at 100, go to 150, or go to 200? General idea right now, because we still have to do a public hearing on it. I just want to get an idea.
Stay at 100, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ms. Popowitz?
I think we ought to go to 2K.
200K. Mr. Sealy?
150 or 200, I could see us doing, because I do understand the startup costs.
Mr. Akers?
I say stay at 100, and the reason I'm saying that is back that we go from 50 to 100, we see as to what impact it's going to make on the small businesses. I can tell you, we're looking at going to, if we go to 250 like Bob is talking about, that's 200,000. That's $58,000 of revenue that you're giving up. Now, we keep giving up this revenue, but you still want to do things. You still want to fund schools. You still want to fund the sheriff's department. You still want to fund the fire and rescue. So how do you fund it? If you're constantly giving up your revenue, how do you fund these other programs? And the other thing is, it does not relieve the responsibility and the
Yes, sir.
obligation of your office to go through those permit applications
Yes,
as
sir. We
as
still
well
have-
as the permit.
Yes, sir. We still have to go through all of them.
Absolutely. So the cost
And-
is still there. I just
You
think
don't have
that
to
we
totally
ought to...
tell us, just give us
No,
an
but-
idea. We're just,
No, 100,000 is, leave it at 100,000.
all right, I said 200, so we're kind of all across the board, but the point is, we are trying to make some sort of relief for the business professional occupational license act. So the first reading, Mr. Parton, you've got the ordinance. Do you feel comfortable in reading it?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I would say that it's simply...
And I meant health-wise, not,
Oh.
okay.
It's a very simple ordinance. It simply makes the changes that have been described and whatever amount the board ends up on. But the relevant section says that every person or business conducting business within Carolina County shall be required to apply annually for a license, notwithstanding the amount of the business's annual gross receipts, except as may be otherwise provided herein, and it references several sections of the Code of Virginia. Every such person or business specified in these sections of this article with annual gross receipts of, and again, whatever the board decides on, the way it reads tonight is 100,000 or less shall be exempt from paying any license fee or license tax. And 2, over $100,000 shall pay a license tax upon all gross receipts at the appropriate rates as set forth in the various sections of the article. In all other respects, the provisions of Article 12, Chapter 103, Taxation of the Code of Caroline County shall remain the same.
Okay. That's the ordinance. Any question about the ordinance? Before we go to public hearing, I think we just kind of figure out what number to put in there, whether it's 100, 150, 200, whatever. So I'm going to compromise at 150 if anybody else wants to meet me there.
I'll meet you at 150.
I'll meet you at 150.
Still at 100?
I'll meet you at 100.
Yeah, I'm still 100.
Still 100?
Yeah.
Okay. We got,
I count.
you count?
I count.
Okay.
I see 3.
So we got, well, is there, Mr. Emerson's probably going to ask me for a motion to make it formal.
No, sir. Actually, I was just going to say you can advertise a high number and not the lower number.
Well, I was going to if we didn't get consensus, I was going to ask for 200, and then we could always go down, but I think we've got consensus at 150. So is there a motion to move this to public hearing at 150 as a threshold?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, which means an additional $17,000 in revenue. So the total movement,
It's 28.5.
yeah, but the total movement from 50 to 150 is 28.5. We'd already agreed at 100, so we counted that 11.5 out. Motion made by Mr. Popowitz, seconded by Mr. Seeley. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Did you go? Mr. Underwood?
I said aye, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Underwood said aye. Mr. Akers, you want to make it unanimous? That was a question.
Yeah.
Okay. The motion carries unanimously. We're going to advertise at 150. And we'll put that on whenever, Mrs. Carter?
As soon as possible, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Parton,
I
as soon
start
as
running
possible.
forms in 6 weeks. With the one, going to the 150 now,
Right.
we will have to add an additional flyer into the mailing, but we start running those in about 6 weeks.
Okay. So we will, we'll meet in October. Maybe we can get this, can we have enough time to advertise for the first meeting in October? We only have one meeting in October, so. Is there enough time? I don't have a calendar up. Mike?
It's like the 12th.
Today's the 27th. Our meeting is on the 11th. So we meet 2 weeks from now. Can I do one advertisement in the progress and two in the freelance, or one in the freelance? I'm sure I'm going to get a discount if I do it in freelance, right? Half off? Mrs. Smith is saying we're going to get a half off discount if we. Oh, now she's saying she's not in the department. Okay. All right. Can you make it happen? We'll let staff say make as soon as possible. So it'll either be our special advertising for October, or we'll do it the November 1st, like we just said our meeting would be. All right, Mr. Parton. That takes care of agenda item number 8. We'll go back to 7. Agenda item number 7 was a discussion of possible restoration of employee pay cuts.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, at the end of the last board meeting, there was discussion about the possibility of restoring employee pay cuts in light of the positive fourth quarter budget report that we heard from Ms. Hatcher for the fiscal year 2011 that just ended June 30th. And staff was asked to develop cost estimates to restore the pay cuts that were implemented in July of 2010. One option that appears to be the best in my mind, if the board is so inclined, would be to restore pay back to what it was before the cuts took place, rather than simply adding on 1 or 2% to the existing salary, because that does not, it comes close, but it does not completely make up for the pay cuts. So I would suggest that if the board wants to do it, that we go back and restore the pay that was in place before the cuts. The estimated cost to accomplish that is about $133,000 on an annual basis. And the board had also requested that we look at giving the second employee bonus of $125 for the part-time employees at minimum wage. The way staff interpreted the board's intent back in December 2010, when the first bonus was awarded, we did not realize that it applied to those folks. They did get the second bonus in June, but they didn't get the first bonus, and the board had asked during the discussion last time that we look at the cost of giving those employees that first bonus as well. That would add about $4,172 to the cost of restoring the pay cuts. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
The final total is 142 plus that 4,000.
That's correct.
146-ish. And that 146 number is this budget year, and will have exactly the same effect next year?
that for the remainder of, is that an annual cost? I may have, okay.
So that's the annual cost that we're going to start in July 1, or we're going to start effective immediately? Say what?
I'm sorry? I said December 1st would be, last week when I brought this up. I want to make sure I understood. Now, we talked about 142. Mr. Thomas just mentioned 142.
That's the number here.
All right, but I was thinking we were talking about making employees whole, and I thought that number was 132.
It's 137.
Okay, so
Yeah.
132. No,
One-
right here. This is the one that makes them whole. 132,564 plus the $4,171 for the $125 bonus. So it's about roughly $137,000 that we're talking about additional expense.
But making them whole as of December, or making them whole as of,
January. Now, if we take whatever the final number is, whether it's this number here, 146, or that number,
137.
137, that's the number to make whole from July 1 of this year to June 30th of next year, right?
If you were to make it retroactive, yes.
So 130 something, 137 or 146, whatever we figure out the final number is.
The
That's
146 was to give all employees, regardless whether they took pay cuts or not, a 1 or 2%. That's why that number is a little bit higher.
Thank you. Okay.
The lower number is only to restore those salaries that were actually cut
All right.
or new hires that were hired at the lower pay scale. Because if you're going to restore
Right.
the salaries, you have to restore the pay scales.
Okay. So we're in the restoration process, not in the bonus process for
That's
everybody
correct.
who came along. So then we're at the 137 number. 137 is the maximum number we would use this year. And 137 will be the same number we'll have to budget for next year, right?
That's correct.
So the 137 is a recurring cost.
No, because we're going from 1 December, not 1 July.
No.
If
No,
you
no,
were
no.
to make it,
No,
that
no,
would be
no.
the annual cost if you had restored it in July.
Right.
July the 1st, it would be
Right.
137, so you have to annualize.
137 is the yearly cost.
Okay.
So that's going to be the cost if we do it retroactive July 1, and that's going to be the cost next
Next
year.
year, right, okay.
So if we don't do July 1, it'll be some percentage of 137. So,
It would be a percentage of 132 because the 4,000 is a one-time.
right, okay. So talking 132, and we're talking either July 1, retroactive, December 1st, effective today, discussion, questions, ideas.
Mr. Chairman, if we said we're going to make them whole, then it should be July 1.
Making you whole
I
is
don't
whole,
think,
right?
that's right, I don't think we nickel and dime, I think we give them the full benefit. Now, if we just say that we want to start December, then that's not making them whole. They're still losing pay from that point. So I say it should be July 1 of this year, so that they are made whole. We didn't cut other folks to a period of time. They were made whole. They received pay raises and bonuses.
And December 1 is 5 months, so January 1 would be 6 months, which would be half of that number. But you're saying whole is, you're saying whole is whole.
That's correct.
Ms. Popowitz, you got an opinion?
Reserve my opinion.
Okay. Mr. Seeley?
I'd rather see us, knowing that we're going forward, start 1 December. That way we start and we know we have to budget next year because we didn't budget for it this year. And so it's going to be an additional cost. So I would, my
So you're
opinion
saying
would be
December
1
1.
December 1.
Which is, something's wrong with me, 5/12 of the year. It's 5/12. I just went brain dead.
The cost is going to be 7.
It's about $11,000 a month, so.
Okay. So 11 times 12 is 132, so, all right, it just came back to me. Oof, that was scary. All right. Yeah, because you're saying 7 months you're going to pay. All right, so you're saying December 1, Jeff, you're saying December 1, Wayne, you're saying July 1 retroactive.
You know, I'm just saying that we did give a bonus this past year of $1,000. Now, I understand in looking at the scale here that only one group of people actually comes out to the better with the $1,000 bonus. Everyone else took a reduction. And the only reason I threw out December the 1st 2 weeks ago was the fact that there were some members saying we need to wait and see what our expenses were and make sure that the money was there. And I said, okay, hey, maybe we can get it through at December 1st. But I have no problem with July 1st. Our employees, I can tell you, have been hit hard over the last several years. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, they did not walk away from us. They stood firm with us in the county. They still did their job, and they did their job well. And so I have no problem supporting July 1.
Ms. Pompous, you want to go back and revisit your opinion?
I have no problem with July 1.
All right. So, the board, just one more to make sure we understand. We're talking $132,000 to restore the employee pay cuts from 2 years ago. From 2 years ago. Okay. Which we all do, as all the board members have expressed. We do appreciate what the employees did, and you know, if you don't pay me, I'm really not going to show up at work. So it's a two-way street. We really appreciate what they did and sacrifices they made. So, is there a motion to that effect to restore the employee salary in whole?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right, Mr. Akers and Mr. Underwood
Do we
jointly
need to
made the
include
motion.
the 4,000 as well? One time bonus.
That includes 4,000.
And the 4,000 plus the 125, right?
Okay. Mr. Parton, excuse me for laughing, but Mr. Parton said to make sure that we clarified in the motion that it was only for employees who are still with the county. Employees that have left the county will not get a retroactive pay for the time they were with the county, but only for employees that are with the county now. So I'm taking Mr. Underwood, your motion and/or second, is to that effect?
Yes. Yes, sir,
Mr.
Mr.
Akers,
Chairman.
your motion
That's
and/or?
bonus.
Excuse me?
And the bonus for the part-time.
Right, and the bonus for the
Just
part-time.
making sure. it's-
We're including the bonus for part-time. Your motion and/or second says the same thing, Ms. Akers?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got two. Mrs. Hall, you can make the motion and second, whichever one you like. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, that
Thank you
motion
on
carries
behalf-
unanimously.
Thank you on behalf of the employees. Thank you very much.
Now you can
retire.
And Mr. Parton just said thank you on behalf of the employees, and Mr. Howard's not here, but as I told Mr. Howard, your enthusiasm and passion for employees will never be punished. We may not be able to do things, and Mr. Parton worked for a long time before he got to yes. So we got to yes, and now we're going to move along. Mr. Fincham has informed me that we can indeed move the proposed amendment for the Code of Caroline festivals to our October meeting. So we're going to do that for agenda item 9. We're just going to postpone that. I understand there's some people here, but we're going to move that to 9 to October, which brings us to the county administrator's report.
Mr. Chairman, you have a calendar in your packet. I will not repeat the items on there. I did want to mention very quickly that we had a meeting this afternoon with FEMA, which was called the Public Assistance Kickoff Meeting for Hurricane Irene, and in that we began to discuss the county's expenses associated with Hurricane Irene and what may be eligible and what the process is for attempting to recover some of our expenses related to that event. We are still waiting for FEMA to complete its work on Tropical Storm Lee and see if we're eligible for that. And so the meeting today was exclusively about the hurricane. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
One question, Mr. Seeley?
And I guess the fire station in Sparta is actually covered by the second event, the tropical depression and the rain. Do we know, so we don't know yet whether they'll cover any of that cost?
Don't know at this point. We're waiting to hear.
No, because they actually talked about it 3 years ago, and it was $2,000 a year.
So they don't have flood
So they
insurance?
do not have flood insurance.
So they're not going to get paid by their insurance, we're just trying to get some money for them from FEMA?
And that is the Sparta Fire Station's question, is FEMA going to have any reimbursement, or is the fire and rescue budget going to help them put back the station?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Garnett, but we don't know on FEMA yet. We're still waiting for that determination.
Okay.
Await your direction as to when to put that on the agenda for board discussion.
As soon as
With
we're
regard.
from FEMA.
Okay.
Or if they need anything from the board in advance of that, we'd be happy to provide them. Okay.
Can we at least look at that at the next board meeting? Because I know that they need to get those trucks back in that station at some point.
Well, that was kind of going to be my closing board comment, but since you mentioned it, I forgot to mention it for Mr. White. But I have contacted AP Hill. I understand they've got a lot of equipment and/or engineers there, so we're trying to get the bridge on Sparta Road repaired by the Army.
Well, they've done an emergency contract for the bridge. The
VDOT
contractor has already been selected. And they're
VDOT
already-
has.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're on site, and they're going to do a full repair, and they're saying it will be done in the next 6 weeks. So they've done the emergency procurement. It's underway. The contractor's there. The real difficulty right now is the culverts that they need are no longer
That's
in stock. They don't carry them in stock. You've got to order them, they got to build them, and then you get them.
yeah, and I heard that was going to take 2 months.
Well, no, they're saying that they think they may have them next week. And that's what they're waiting, that's what, I talked to Jake tonight about where they were in the process of actually getting those.
All right, well, we'll do another 2-week wait. Other than that, I'm going to go back to the Army and say, put a bridge up there if you can.
As long as it'll carry semis, because that's the big deal. All the corn and soybeans.
They sent me to the Virginia National Guard, so we may do either or. I really don't care. I don't care how it happens as long as it happens. So
Okay.
if we can do it 3 weeks, if I got to go back to the Army or the National Guard, we'll do that.
Okay.
But we're going to see what we can do as quick as possible. All right, closing board comments, Mr. Underwood.
None at this time, Mr. Chairman.
I have done, Mr. Chairman.
We're through mine, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, yes, last Friday night, the Caroline County Garden Club celebrated 50 years. And the board, of course, passed a resolution, and I presented it to the president of the garden club last week. Really nice event, a lot of people there, and we should be proud of our garden club because they've done a lot of good things for Caroline County in trying to beautify it and improve the looks. And so we're very thankful for that group of men and ladies there. By the way, if there's anybody on this board would like to join, or in the audience, they are recruiting male members now. It's
Just remember what they said, why.
I'm sorry? Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman?
I
I'll let you know.
I actually joined 3 years ago, I think. It was like $10 a year. I didn't do any gardening.
Oh, they
'cause
kicked you out there.
I don't do gardening, but I joined to show my support for them, so.
They kicked you out.
Mr. Barton, do you have something you want to add?
I was just going to mention that they gave us a very nice painting that will be displayed in in our county administrator's office downstairs, if that's acceptable. A very nice painting of the original community garden, I guess it is, in front of the courthouse.
Very,
Oh, yeah.
very beautiful. And a lady from Lake Caroline painted this.
You never fail to get that kind of stuff,
I'm sorry?
You never fail to get that kind of stuff.
Not if I can help it, I don't. But beautiful, beautiful painting. I would really encourage you to go by and to look at it. Is that where they wanted to be hung?
Yeah, it was right in the entranceway.
Beautiful painting.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm much disappointed that we are finished with our agenda, and there is no closed meeting. There is no closed meeting. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Motion, we're adjourned.
You keep saying it, it's much